Dr. Amidei. This is a topic that is definitely near and dear to my heart. I am, sorry, let me switch. What happened there? Okay. I am Patrice Spirou. I work as a lead for family catechesis and curriculum at the Archdiocese of Atlanta in the Office of Evangelization and Discipleship. And Kathie and I, when we talked about this panel, we realized that we really are on the same page, which was awesome, and that we would probably have some overlap. So I really wanted to talk about the perspective also of a diocesan intentional use of supporting parishes in family faith formation as part of a larger or broader evangelization effort or tool. Because that is our goal, and our support to the parishes make it possible or makes it easier for parishes to be able to implement the models that we'll discuss today. So thanks for having me. One of the questions that we always are asking ourselves is, what do parents really need from us now? What do families need? And that's become extremely complex, as we all know. Before COVID, we were looking at the importance of an adult faith formation perspective, even within religious education that was geared towards our children and teens and tweens. For obvious reasons, we were seeing that there was a great need to catechize, to form in the faith adults. And it's not that family faith formation is the only piece that would be important to renewing parish life, but it is a major component of an overall perspective on evangelization in many ways, so we would also include whole family catechesis, intergenerational catechesis, different approaches and ways of looking at everything that we do, because the parish itself is a family. But the big thing about family catechesis is shifting from looking at just an individual child's faith formation to realizing that that child lives within a family, and that if you have that separated from the child's faith formation, separated from the family's faith formation, it presents a completely siloed experience, meaning that you might be forming the child in faith at the parish level with your religious education classes and so forth. But if there's nothing to connect that to when that child goes home, if that child's in a public school and there's nothing there at all that is helping them to grow in their faith and encouraging them spiritually, it's not going to land anywhere. It's not going to grow. It's not going to take root. So we want to look at the child holistically within the sociological, psychological, emotional, spiritual perspectives of a child growing up within a family, whatever that family looks like. When we do this presentation, a lot of times I always ask people to talk about their own perspective as, how the people in their lives, their parents, their grandparents, or maybe their guardians, or maybe just another adult in their life, what was the impact that that person had on their own faith formation? And oftentimes, it was a parent or a grandparent that really made that impression on them, that showed them that living this life in Christ, it's a way of life. It's not just something that you do. It's not just an institution. It's not just something that's cultural, but it is something that is intimate and that gives you tools for life, because God wants to be integrated into who you are. You were created for this. So for myself, I always tell the story about my grandparents. They were Irish immigrants, and I remember growing up and laying in bed next to my grandmother at night when I was little, and I got to sleep overnight at her house. And I remember her saying the rosary and a big picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus on the wall. And my father, they were quiet about their faith. They didn't express, but they didn't talk a lot about their personal experience of their faith, but faith was there like a rock under your feet. And they made a lot of sacrifices for us to go to Catholic school and so forth. And I'm sure that you have your own stories, and I'd love to hear them, but maybe in another format, or maybe put some of those in the chat. That'd be great. research is overwhelmingly showing, and many of you might be familiar with this report from Notre Dame, that the crucial point that decides what religious outcomes are going to be, meaning are children going to practice their faith or not, doesn't happen at the parish or in the classroom, but it happens within the home. This study also told us two things. It told us what parents don't want. They don't want, this is pre-COVID, they didn't want more homework pre-COVID. They certainly don't want more homework now. And they didn't want to volunteer because they were completely overwhelmed. And then it also told us what parents did want from us as a faith community, from their parish. They want help building their relationships within their family. That was what they wanted from us specifically. Also, the data showed, and we're trying to respond to it as an archdiocese, that parents should be informed of their role as primary educators, but in a way that's not intimidating or scary or puts too much on them. So it's in a way that requires an accompaniment with them and a great support with them. And it emphasized the importance of fathers in showing how to live a Christian life out in the world. Which means that parish clergy, religious professionals are more important than ever. It's not that just the parents are going to take over as primary educators and they don't need us anymore. No, they definitely need us, because it's one of those things where it still takes a village. And Catholic cultural opportunities are beautiful traditions. They need to be available to enhance that Catholic family life being lived within the home. For us as an overarching priority, of course, we talked about the church teachings, the research data. We had a 2015 pastoral plan that really emphasized the need for family faith formation.
I'm gonna unmute this real quick, just so I can hear it.
Then COVID hit. Oh, I'm sorry, whoever's just joined us, could you please mute yourself, please? Thank you. And then when COVID hit, it was definitely a crisis, but it also became this fabulous opportunity. I don't know how other dioceses viewed COVID, but we were scrambling with everybody else. But we thought, you know what? Families are locked down together. They are probably going a little crazy. That God is in their midst, and we just have to help them to realize that God is in their midst. And so we were looking for ways that we could accompany them even during the lockdown. And this is kind of, we were always interested in doing family faith formation models, but this is really what was the thing that sparked it. It really generated an opportunity for a myriad of models, not just one model, but many, many kinds of models. And all of our church documents, I mean, this was a no-brainer. The Bible, everything we believe really supported this model. The regular catechesis, our traditional classroom model, it has its limitations, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but right now, but it's limited, and we know that it's really important to engage parents, to engage families, so that they can grow closer to each other and closer to God. They really need that. We all need that, but I think in times that are changing, we need it more and more. And the regular classroom models don't offer that opportunity for parents as much as they could. And I'm not against the regular classroom models completely. I do have a few ideas for things you can do if you have a regular classroom model, and if you're a catechist and that's the program that you have. We do have suggestions and things that you can do to help the families that are in your care. And then, when you shift to a model of family catechesis, everyone, there are obstacles and there are hurdles, but that doesn't mean that they are not hurdles that cannot be overcome. So many families don't even know what a domestic church is. So when you're telling them that they are the domestic church and that they're living this life of faith within their homes, that takes some work. And this is a constant campaign. You're constantly educating and informing and spreading. That's evangelization, right? And many parents don't feel competent to pass on the faith, which is understandable. So again, we need to give them that support. And in many cultures within the Catholic culture, there sometimes is a code of silence. I kind of referred to that when I talked a little bit about my dad didn't really talk about the faith. We didn't discuss our relationship with God. And so that's something that we really need to try to break down, those types of walls, so that there is more comfort and more sharing, because we know that children really benefit from hearing the faith stories of their parents. And when someone has an opportunity to articulate their faith story for themselves or for their children or for anybody, it really, they become aware that God has always been there in their life, and that he is part of their identity. The Holy Father basically said that, it's great that we're doing all of these things, but it's not the catechism classroom or the best sermon. It's really children having the opportunity to see their parents praying together. That makes a huge impact on them, living that faith within the family, and the families, the parents saying, yes, this is important to me. This is part of who I am, and it's part of who you are. So families need us to help them in a lot of different ways. And we need to start thinking about different ways to do that. We need to get outside of the boxes that we put ourselves in. And instead of thinking about how they can come and fit into our format, we need to be thinking about what their lives are like and how we can fit into their format. So we really want to, in order to do that, we need to be able to, walk with them. We want to be part of their spiritual family. We wanted to help them build relationships, foster prayer in their homes. These were things we really wanted to do. If there was one thing we could get them doing during the pandemic, if we could get them praying together, which of course is not an easy thing to do, but if we could do that, that would be huge. And help them to realize that Jesus is with them in their home, that he is present to them, that he wants them to see him, and that he is part of their family. And they just need to take the time to find him there. So as an archdiocese, we've been very intentional about accompanying our parish catechetical leaders. And we did this straight from the beginning, and we've been continuing to do that. So we're in year 3 of this now. And what we've done is we started off with regular virtual meetings. During the pandemic, it was every week. Now we're once a month. We did retreats that were virtual, and we're back to doing both in person and virtual retreats. We've had some family faith formation panels. So we chose leaders from parishes that had the best family faith formation programs going, and they would be the panel, and they would share their ideas, just kind of like Kathie and I are doing today. We also got the support of our bishops and our pastors, because we knew that we were telling our parish leaders, you should be doing something for families. You don't have to follow exactly what we're saying, but you should be thinking family, and that it was important for our bishops and our pastors to understand that too. So we met with them in various settings. We really did a lot of surveys. We continue to do surveys. Sometimes we do too many surveys and they get tired of us, but we want to know what our leaders want and what they're saying, and how we can change what we're doing as a diocesan office to meet their needs as well. One of the big things that changed was my title, actually. It was an investment on the part of our office and the Archdiocese to actually have someone who is a ministry lead for family catechesis and curriculum. So that was a big change. We have offered professional development. We sent many of our parish leaders to the Peyton Institute, which were virtual workshops. Our PCL orientation, we just had that recently, and that integrated a family component and the importance of family catechesis into that. So we're looking for a variety of ways to support that and to get that message out there. We bring that to all of our deanery meetings. And then one of the biggest things that we did during COVID was we put together this program that is called Families Forming Disciples. So Families Forming Disciples is a free, so feel free to go online. All you gotta do is Google Families Forming Disciples, or you can go to our website at evangelizationatl.com. But either way, Families Forming Disciples, you put that in the search and it will come up. And it is a free resource that we have developed. Within Families Forming Disciples, the the family is the small group. So there's a lot of discussion that takes place, and it's within the small group. It's within the family. There are prayer that takes place. It's within the family. Initially, this started off as being mostly virtual. It was written because of COVID, but now our parishes have transitioned to meeting in person. So they're using it as a in-person format, but they can also, if anything ever happens again, and we need to go back to virtual, we can do that. This tool is being used in a lot of different ways. It's written that a family meets at the parish week 1. Week 2 is an at-home activity that they do. Then they share week 3. They meet again at the parish and they share what they did during week 3. But it's not always used that way. Sometimes it's used, they meet week 1, week 2 is at home, and week 3 might be virtual. You might have sometimes, it's created so that the small group is the family and all the sharing of family stories, their history, what different sacraments and memories that they have, all of these ideas that really plug into their experience of their faith, that are non-threatening, that share their family's heritage and their Christian Catholic tradition in very easy, natural ways. Sometimes a parish will have that first gathering where they meet in families the first week, they do their at-home activities the second week, and then they be meeting in grade according to grade level in the third week. So there's no right way to do it. That's what I'm trying to say in a very long way. I'm telling you, there's no right way to do it. We tell people just steal ideas from it. We don't care. It's a free resource, and we really want to help you engage families. So feel free to look at that. Okay, so there we go. In families forming disciples, the role of the catechist changes. So they're not just an instructor, but they're asked to really pray with and for the families that they are engaging with, that they are evangelizing. The program creates a space for families to share. Now, this should happen. I'm telling you these things about families forming disciples, but honestly, this is what it should be, regardless of what program you're using. And there's a lot of great programs out there, and we don't tell our people you have to just use our program. They can use anything that they want to use, within reason, of course. But this is just one tool, and there's a lot of great things out there as well. But these are things that should be part of it. The idea is that they're making a space to talk about, for families to talk about their faith. They're making a space for families to pray together and to get used to praying together as a small group. So then hopefully they go home and they can continue that. One of our first activities is they create a prayer corner or a home altar. So hopefully everything that we're doing is going back to that, and they're having some moments of prayer and living the traditions of the faith, the liturgical calendar within their home. They get to talk about their own experiences growing up, their own experiences with the sacraments. The catechist does everything that the families are asked to do. And so when he or she is sharing with the families, this is what you're going to be doing at home, that catechist also says, this is what I did that already, and this is what it looks like, and this is what my family got out of it. So the catechist is a model for the learning that will take place, and they will do, obviously encouragement. They'll do mostly informal types of assessment and making adjustments. John will be very familiar with this. All of our lessons with families forming disciples, or anything that we are promoting, have these 5 aspects. They're important for families to and children to experience within their families, so that as they go on, their faith has meaning for them and they continue living the faith with their own families when they get older. So hearing conversations, family devotions and prayer, family rituals and traditions, family service, all to build strong family relationships, and ultimately to build a strong relationship with God. So all these aspects are very, very important and part of all of our lessons. So this is a little information about what happened year one. It's FFD, is Families Forming Disciples. You can see we had about 20 parishes within it. This is just those parishes that we surveyed within our own diocese. So we had about 20 using our Families Forming Disciples the first year of COVID. And then that dropped to about 15 because some of them said, you know what, we're going to go back to doing the regular classroom format. And that's okay, that's fine. But we said, you know, just try to do something that is still a family-oriented type of a thing, even if you're just meeting with families twice a year, but something that's supporting that. And this last year, we're probably 18, maybe closer to 20. You know, it's hard to know really when we're surveying because we only have about a third of the parishes that are responding. So it could be more. I'm hopeful that it's more. And then we had parishes prior to this that were already doing a family program or that started a different kind of family program during COVID. So there was another 20. So we've got about 40% at a minimum. That's more of a conservative view of our parishes doing family programs. And that doesn't include those that are using materials periodically to do family types of events and outreach. We do know that just looking at our website, that it was during COVID accessed in 47 different states and 17 other countries. Like I said, it's a free because it's free. Recently, last night, I checked our website traffic, our analytics, and actually it's exploded over the last month. We have had over 1,000 visits and we're up 58%. So that's all good stuff. It tells us to keep on going. Every year we do a survey and we get information from families about how things and the fruit of their experience. So they had a lot of very positive feedback to give us. And if we see something that becomes an ongoing theme that needs to be changed, we respond to that and we change. We also got a lot of, this is more from parish leaders, from some pastors about what their experience has been like. Family faith formation is messy, but it bears a lot of fruit. We want family to become more of a faith experience than just becoming something that they are compelled to do, or it's compulsory because you need to do this to complete a sacrament. So we want to move beyond that to more of something that builds relationships with one another within the family and with God. So if we have parishes that are just doing a classroom model, we tell them just get your feet wet, just try to do a couple things, do the traveling Mary Rosary kit, send it home during the month of October, or send it home, to a different child with a different child all year long. And I've had, catechists come back and tell me that they did that and the families really, really loved it. Even if they end up just setting up a crucifix or a statue of Mary, or just laying out the rosary in their home, that's one more thing that they've done that says, yes, this is who we are. Even if they didn't get around to praying it, but we do encourage them always to be praying. All kinds of liturgical calendar kits. One thing I used to do when I was working at the parish, I would always send home, I'm one of those people that would give like a very short quiz. I was hoping somebody was learning something in the religious education class, but I'd send home with the answers to the parents. And these were often middle schoolers. And I'm telling you, about 85% of those parents, because I thought they're not going to care, they're not with the little ones, they did care and they did work with their kids on it. So even for the middle school and high schoolers, parents are often an untapped resource. And then journaling, I highly recommend journaling. Put a question in a journal, send it home and ask each member of the family to answer the question. Here are some examples of questions. Who your life has taught you the most about God, your favorite saint, do you remember these different sacraments, Old Testament hero, what do you want for your children? So you send home, you write the question, you send that home, have different people in the family answer it, and just kind of keep that going. It's just a way that a classroom teacher can reach into the home. You could even send it home with the video. There's lots of resources out there. These are just a few that I found that are 2-3 minute videos and with a question. If you wanted to wade in a little bit more, you could start to have families come into the classroom to lead a prayer, to do a service project. We had a lot of success with that. Just to do liturgical events. So just another way of getting families integrated, and anybody can do these things. It's normally what you're doing with your classroom, just add families to it. And then if you're going to go full immersion, there's a myriad of programs out there. And ours is free as well. And there's other things that are online, I know, that offer free lessons and, you know, those kinds of things if you're going to jump in completely. And feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help you with all of that too. But the time has come to make a shift. And so regardless of what kind of a shift you feel comfortable with, it's always good to start small, and you learn a lot as you build up. That's pretty much the most prudent way of doing it. But I've seen parishes that jump in 100% and then and then there's pushback, of course, but they go on to be successful. So I just really encourage all of you to start thinking outside the box. There's a lot of materials out there that weren't out there many years ago when I first started doing this at the parish level. And there are a lot of resources. These are just a few. And thank you. So it was wonderful having this time to share with you, and I'm going to hand this off to Kathie.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Patrice, can you give me a head nod so I can at least see you? You can hear me. Okay, great. Just going to move this. Can't get to screen share yet. There we go. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Patrice. That was wonderful to hear from you. I thought everything you said was so pertinent, so excellent. And thank you. And thanks to John and NCCL for providing this forum. It's a joy to be here. I'm Kathie Amidei. I am pastoral associate at St. Anthony on the Lake Parish in the Archdiocese of Pewaukee. I work with Gary Picorni at the Archdiocese of Pewaukee to on something we call family perspectives, where we teach the model that I'm going to be talking about today. I also write for OSV and speak for them. So that's what I do. I have been in faith formation for 30 years, and I was in Catholic education before that. So that's a little about my background. I've been in the parish on staff at the Archdiocese and here at the parish, but many more years here at the parish. And that's really where my love is, my heart is with parish life. So let me share a little bit today. I'm just so grateful that NCCL is bringing us together so that we can spend some time on what I think is this compelling issue of families and faith. When I was thinking about this topic and catechetical ministry, the image came to me of the phrase, stay in your own lane. For me, I can be comfortable in my lane, what I feel that I know best, and to just keep doing what I know best. But my story is that I had to change lanes. I was a child minister. I had taught in a grade school, in a Catholic grade school. And through a series of circumstances, I had to change lanes from an exclusive child catechesis to family catechesis. And I resisted, thinking, one, it wasn't good religious education, and two, I didn't know how to do it. But now, after 30 years of leading and developing a family model, researching it, and then raising my own children and now my grandchildren in it, I believe it's the best gift we can give families so they can pass on faith to the next generation. In the short time that I have with you, I'll do my best to summarize some things that I've learned and why changing lanes seems to be an apt metaphor. I'll briefly describe two models and give a couple of ideas of family catechesis. So I'm gonna start with my little metaphor here. Most of us come from or go into an age-specific area of catechetical ministry, perhaps children, youth, or adult. And when we think about moving into family catechesis, that expertise is still important, but it usually requires some change in thinking, in vision, and how we approach ministry. It's like changing lanes. When we change lanes, we become aware of the traffic around us. In ministry, we want to assess what's our situation in our diocese or in our parish. When we change lanes, we put our blinker on. And in family ministry, it's important to communicate with families the same way you make people aware by turning your blinker on. We have to help families be aware of why we're making changes. We can't ask them to change without them knowing the why. Why are we asking them to change? In traffic, we check our mirror. In ministry, we make this change considering educating, informing, and inspiring leadership. So we have to communicate with our parish council, with our pastor, and even with our bishop. And finally, we have to make our move. In our metaphor, we follow the wisdom of the church teaching and documents. You are the domestic church, our church says. Parents are the first herald of faith to their families. And we trust in the overwhelming excuse me, amount of research about passing on faith. We move from an exclusive age-specific model to integrating an intergenerational family faith or model. We have to change lanes that includes age-specific catechesis with catechesis for all ages. So changing lanes doesn't mean that we are changing the road. It doesn't mean we're changing everything. In terms of the content, we're not changing what we teach. What we teach doesn't change, but we are teaching how we teach, in that we use both age-specific strategies and intergenerational family faith formation strategies. And why? Our why is because of the church teaching. The church teaches us that parents are the first and foremost catechists to their children. And because of research, what we know, what research has shared with us, that formation that occurs in the family and in intergenerational community has long-term positive effects on faith. Dr. Christian Smith says, parents, for better or worse, are the most influential pastors of their children and define for their children the role of faith formation and what faith and practice ought to play in life. So in changing models, we use this, in the traditional model, we use systematic comprehensive curriculum for children and adolescents. It's taught by catechists. It's an intentional formation that ends usually often in high school or perhaps following confirmation. It intentionally takes place almost exclusively in the parish. The model that I'm advocating is that we continue to use systematic comprehensive curriculum for children and adults. I maintain that that's a good thing. It is still taught by volunteer catechists, but also by parents. And here's another difference. Parents are teachers in this model, and parents are learners. Its intentional faith formation is lifelong. It includes children, youth, but it includes adults. It takes place in the parish and in the home. And it's catechesis that is charisma focused. By that, I mean, it's focused on relationships, on metanoia, about the change of our heart as well as our head to Christ. It's about learning about our Catholic faith, but also forming that relationship with Jesus. So there are many ways we could talk about this. And as Patrice said, there's many wonderful approaches that one could take with this. I have 20 minutes to share what I've been studying for 30 years. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you basically what I found is the most optimal model, the integrated family model. And I'm just going to touch on that, how we adapted this during the pandemic to a blended digital family model, if that's of any help. And then just give you an idea of what happens in an intergenerational session. So in family faith formation, these things are always a part of it. Fellowship, age-specific learning, the content of faith, we still need to pass on the richness of the tradition of the Catholic faith. But it includes intergenerational experiences of faith, not just simply doing them with my own age group. It includes prayer and includes service, all the things that Patrice was talking about. I like to think of it as formation, information that they're learning who they are, but it's also inspiration. It's learning what our spiritual nature is. It has to be, for it to work, a partnership between parents and the parish. But these elements can vary in the structure. So I'm just going to tell you a way that we have put this together in an integrated family model that we have found has worked very well. So I'm just going to refer to as an integrated family catechetical model. Sometimes it's referred to as a comprehensive model. There's different names that you can give it, but it's an alternative to dropping children off into a classroom. Why do I say this is optimal? Because it includes components to be effective that are practical. It doesn't ask too much of families or of catechetical leaders, but it does connect families enough to make that critical difference. I'm not sure why it stopped moving. There we go. Okay, go back here. So the key components are a social or community building time, a grade level classes, but those include adult sessions and a family activity session. So let me say what it isn't. It's why it's different. It's different. Why it's a different lane is because parents aren't just dropping off their children; they're coming with them. So let me describe the model as best I can. It's important is the first component, the social or community building. That's the importance of fellowship or networking with families. I would say strongly that this is not an option. It's something that we have to do. The connecting and networking of families is as important as a religious education curriculum, because it's in the relationships that is the glue that forms religious socialization. It's the emotional ties that make religion stick and last. Despite the age segregation that exists in our churches and in our broader culture, each young person is greatly benefited when they're surrounded by a team of faithful adults. Sometimes this is referred in some of the literature as a 5-to-1 ratio, 5 adults, faithful adults in the life of every one child. Over time, this model cultivates that culture of intergenerational relationships. In the literature, it says from Sticky Faith, kids need to develop a strong personal identity for faith to stick, and community helps do just that. This is part of what we refer to as religious socialization. That's the process through which an individual learns and internalizes the religious beliefs and attitudes and values and behaviors, that social influence through which a person acquires the culture of a certain group. So religious socialization of faith doesn't happen through osmosis in our present culture. Just because we're baptized Catholic doesn't mean that we're socialized as in our religious socialization as a Catholic. It is what has happened for about 100 years or probably more in Catholic schools. Religious socialization is not likely to happen with children or teens in a building and with parents in the parking lot. To borrow an idea from Dr. Christian Smith, a child can't learn a language by being dropped off once a week for an hour listening to someone speak a language. They need to practice to speak that language. And it's the same with faith. Children need to practice talking the language of faith, and they need experiences of faith to become a person of faith. In this model respects the age-specific learning. I do come from a background of education, and I do believe that textbooks are a gift to children. They present the teachings of the faith in a systematic and comprehensive way, and publishers are really to be commended for their good work. But as one of my pastors said, textbooks are a tool, they are not a model. So if you adopt a family-centered model, I urge you not to give up textbooks or published curriculum for children. Use it, but integrate it with experiences with parents and intergenerational curriculum. You can easily use published age-specific material. You don't need to invent the wheel on that. It's what is out there is very good. I know there are models that give alternative curriculum or ask catechetical leaders or catechists to create grade-specific material, but I don't think that really that's necessary. I think we can just use the textbooks that we've always used in faith formation in catechetical ministry. But if we partner with parents doing that, we can cover a great amount of material. So for example, in this model, we do 2 of chapters of a textbook with children at the parish, but then the parents do 1 of the chapters at home every month with the children. And I can explain more how that works, but not in this 20 minutes, okay? It's a long-standing tradition to have catechists facilitating or teaching small groups. And that continues in this model, but here's a difference. You will have parents there available for last minute subs. Everyone has been there where the catechist didn't show up, but now parents are there to help. And parents tend to be more willing to be catechists because they're more involved and it's easier for them to become part of a catechist group. Religious curriculum in this model can start as young as 3 years old. Hopefully there's childcare available. Babies are always welcome to be with parents. And this is the part of changing lanes that isn't foreign or different. But here's what is. Age-specific learning for children and youth, but also includes adults. We know by any measurement, our faith formation and religious education is not complete by high school, grade school, or when someone is confirmed. Faith development is a lifelong process. So we need parents to be leaders of faith in their family. And this may be what is part of the learning curve in changing lanes in this model, because people say, well, what do we do with parents? Well, we work with parents when their children are in the age-specific learning sessions. And there's many different ways to do this, but whether it's parents or grandparents or guardians, we need to think of how can we be engaging and speak to them about what is meaningful to them. And Patrice talked a lot about that mentioned that in the faith stories that families have to pass on, but they have to reflect on them to be able to pass them on. So we talk about informing and forming parents. And often sometimes when we're with parents, we have this strategy. Our first strategy is that we have to teach them something. But I would say the first thing that we have to do is engage them in something that they recognize relates to their everyday life. That often means inspiring them as well as educating them. This can happen in small groups. It can happen in presentations. It can be led by a deacon or an older parent adult, by colleagues or by some strong parent in the group. And so that's a whole thing that we need a session on to mind them how to do that well. But the third critical factor is the family activity. So what do we do when we bring multiple generations together in the same learning session in an intergenerational setting? What does a family activity look like? Most of us in catechetical ministry weren't educated in how to do intergenerational catechesis well. Excuse me, got a little cold. But take heart. What you know about age-specific catechesis is a great foundation. So I'm just going to give you a few examples, just a couple to give you an idea of what that is. We teach about the liturgical year in a session. And here they instead of just reading about it in a book, we put T-shirts on them with the different colors of the liturgical season. But then we had the families create their own liturgical wheel where they could understand how the liturgical season works, and they could put in their own birthdays or their own anniversaries. So it's integrated into their family life. Here's a family teaching their children about the sacrament of baptism. They have read about it in their textbook. That's totally fine. But in addition to that, what is a difference does it make if a parent is sitting there helping them hold the child and pour the water, to touch the baptismal candle and to experience what oil feels like. So those are just a couple. I want to give one example that we're working on right now in our parish, and this idea that you may want to use when you gather families in preparing them. It's an idea that you can use. And so I'll make this available to you. And I think Taylor Barr and Lee Boyd, my colleagues who really developed this. When families were gathered, we talked about 3 principles: Lent, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And then we discussed a little about each of those. And then as an activity, we gave them a playlist so they could design their own prayer practice for Lent. We gave them a highlighter and said, consider some of these ideas, or we're going to do this, but this is our plan. And then they're going to highlight what ideas they think are valid or meaningful to them. Then we gave them a tool to design their own prayer service that they could do during Lent in their family at home on a regular basis. So we used a cross as a template. And from the playlist, we asked them to pick out, what will your environment look like? How will you begin? How will you open your prayer? How will you pray together? And then how will you close your prayer? So the family created their own prayer practice. We could have sent a very nice prayer service home. We could have emailed it. We could have a hard copy mailed it. We could have put it in the child's backpack. I just don't think that they would have actually prayed it if we did that. Since they created this, we believe it's much more likely that they might actually use it in family prayer. In addition, we put we will be putting the prayer list on our website so they can access the links easily. In addition to that, we've been building this year a family of what we call wonder cards. How do you wonder about your faith? And so for Lent, we'll give them 3 wonder cards that they will be able to wonder about their faith. We'll invite them with each card to take a picture of something that inspires them about one of the practices, Lenten practices of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And then we give them some discussion questions to wonder about, to ponder about, and to discuss in their own family. So when I talk about, elements of good intergenerational session, here's people have told me this is helpful. Ask yourself, is it active? Does it teach something? Is prayer involved? Do families discuss something with each other? And it's okay if it's fun. It's actually good if it's fun. So that's the model in a nutshell. And I'm just going to sort of pass over what happened to us during the pandemic. We ended up developing a blended digital model. We found that during the pandemic that people really still did need to be together. And so when it became safe enough, we started, we moved from a totally online model to this blended model where we added a Zoom component, and it worked really well. So in this model, once a month they met in person. We had to spread them out because of COVID and masks and all the protocols, et cetera. But we felt the most important thing in faith development is that we kind of kept those relationships going with the children and teens. And so we did continue to meet when we were able to safely enough. But then, so that was that in person, which we had some, wrapped up treats that they had shared with their own family. We had to do all these kinds of adaptations because of COVID that we don't have to do now. But then we also had a virtual session that they did. Now, here's why I think the virtual session worked. I think it worked because we found that a silver lining in this hybrid model of small faith sharing groups of families. We were aware of the power of small faith sharing groups, but this gave us an opportunity to put families in small faith sharing groups. And so they would Zoom, not with everyone, but just with their small group. Here's a session where they were each doing their own faith map, and they did it to get individually as their family, and then they shared it. When we found that this actually worked really well. Here's another session we did on the fruits of the Holy Spirit. I just wanted to give you an example of the kind of topics we did. So they discussed the fruits of the Holy Spirit, and then mined it again in the meaning of their own family. So what were the fruits of the Spirit that most reflected in their family, and what could they use? What could they use more of? So that's how we developed the online. We gave it to one leader in the group, and then each that in that small group, that parent leader led their small group. So it was an experiment, and I would say that it had legs. It was good. It worked pretty well. So in this little, as I said, I feel like I'm just really giving you headlines here, but I think that this is a brief description of family catechesis, of what it might look like. And I hope you found one thing at least that is enriching for you. the research gives strong evidence that it doesn't work to outsource a child's faith formation. And that's really the bottom line, is we have to learn, as Patrice said, to find different ways to connect with families. And so just to close my little part, I would just share this quote from Amoris Laetitia, that we all feel called to love and cherish in family life. We're all called to that. But families are not a problem. They're first and foremost an opportunity. And I think when we think like this, catechetical ministry becomes really exciting and life-giving to us, a catechetical leader, as well as to our families. So thanks very much for listening. Sorry about my scratchy voice here. I'll stop sharing here.
Thank you, Kathie. Let me get Patrice back up here. There she is. We have some questions. I've been monitoring the chat, and we'll continue to use the chat for any further questions. But I'll pose these questions to both of you. We have about 15-20 minutes before we wrap up. And the inevitable question you always get about moving to a family model and the rest. How do you reconcile the reality that as a parish, we want to work with the family and parents and be understanding, compassionate, and flexible, yet the family and parents don't want to meet us even halfway?
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, this is one of the top 5 questions, right, on the wall of family faith.
And my top answer is, I was a first grade teacher for many years, and if I had one way that taught reading, where children were reading at grade level, and then another method where they weren't learning to read at grade level, why would I keep doing the one that way where they weren't learning it to read at grade level? I think if we don't do something that includes parents, we will not have another generation of faithful adults. And so I think that we just have to be honest with parents and share with them, we can't do this alone. We can do this in partnership with you. I think we have to be honest and humble about what we can and can't do, and find ways. With a model that I shared with you, we did side by side for many years, a drop-off model in that, and then over time we won parents over, I guess you would say. I don't think it's easy, but I think it's the only thing. I think we have to be honest and tell parents what we can do. We just had one interesting experience I'll share with you, that the family that was most angry with us when we changed to a full family model, I thought the dad was going to throw tomatoes at me when I told him he had to come. And I just have to share this. His son is in our family faith formation model with his daughter and new baby now. So people change lanes with us. They do adjust.
Patrice, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I would agree with Kathie. When I was at the parish, I started the family program and still ran the regular classroom model. So we had 2 programs running side by side, and we started with 40 families. We were doing a monthly model at the time. So I always did a parent session at the beginning. So they had a choice. They literally had a choice. But they came, this is terrible. They came because it was once a month versus having to drive every week to the parish. And I knew that. And I told them at the opening meeting that I know that you're coming because it's once a month. But my son goes to an all boys Catholic school, and he goes to youth ministry to meet girls. So I don't care what gets you in the door. I'm just happy that you're here. So it might be the wrong motivation. But over time, what happened was that program grew on its own by leaps and bounds. And we had 400 families in that program by the time I left and moved to Georgia. And it was word of mouth, and it was their experience, and we had a waiting list. And so, I didn't have a pastor that said, we're going to do this and that's it, and we'll take the blowback. Some pastors will do that, but a lot of times it's better to incrementally grow something and show that this is something that's fruitful and beneficial for the family. After a while, we didn't have enough space for everybody. So it just takes time and persistence, and don't get discouraged because it's easy to get discouraged with a few naysayers And you just have to know that, that this is the direction that God is leading you in. A lot of prayer has to go into this prior to even start any of this, and prayer support. So you need to know that you're called to this, and you'll be able to have it be what God wants it to be there. Ultimately, we're trying to serve families, to have them discover that God is with them and wants to be part of their lives.
And I would just add that the prayer doesn't stop. You do keep praying about it, but everything that Patrice said is exactly has been our experience. I would share that.
So one of the questions always is about a family approach. What about singles? What about grandparents? What about empty nesters? What's your advice to people on how to be inclusive of other folks?
I'll share in this. We actually have had that experience, and I wrote about it. What we hadn't anticipated is when families kind of aged out of the program, that the adults felt bereft. Like, what happened? I had a community and now I don't have one. What we have established, we call it emeritus, but we do include parents, grandparents, empty nesters, or I'm sorry, not parents, empty nesters, former family program parents, or parishioners or grandparents, anyone that wants to. And they come to they have the same fellowship, and they do the same adult session with us. But during the family session, they have their own session. So they have a small group session and they come in. So there is, I don't know if I can explain it in 2 minutes here, but there is a way to continue to integrate adults into this family model. We just had to grow into it. It's possible.
Patrice, you want to?
Yeah, I would agree with Kathie. We agree with each other all the time. That's
We're
where I
new
find the
friends.
problem. Is that's what I've seen other parishes doing as well. It was interesting, you know, we had a parish in the Archdiocese that they were doing a family catechesis model, and then after it was both Spanish and Anglos at the parish, and then the Spanish, after a while, I think they had complaints from the Anglos. The Anglos didn't want to participate, and it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. They were the smaller group, but the Spanish wanted to keep on going. So the pastor says, well, we're not going to do this anymore. And then the Spanish still did the exact same thing. They still came, they still met, they still did their thing. So, and it was more informally. I've seen parishes use different resources, video resources that are free or from their parish, for example, Formed, where they get together for a meal and then they have discussion. So there's always ways to integrate, and I've seen parishes have that extra class on the side. It depends on what the resources are. I even have one parish that the pastor teaches that adult faith formation class at the same time that the family program is going on. So there are a variety of ways to do it. I think it's important to be mindful that we have different kinds of families. And when I was at the parish doing a family program, we had started to branch into doing retreats for married couples, but we even had nights of, not retreats because they were single, but nights for single parents, where we could, help with childcare and that type of a thing, but they would have evenings of reflection and correct information about annulments, correct information about the teachings of the church, not hearsay. So, we did branch into trying to reach out to other groups. And as long, a grandparent was always welcome. We pretty much, or you could come with any family member, but a child couldn't come alone.
Well, I would say the same thing. And we say, if you say you're a family, you're a family. So if it's a single parent, you're a family. We have divorced parents where even though they're divorced, they still both come. Or so I think that that's it. And what's wonderful about it is that nobody knows who's a single parent. It's not like you're singled out in any way. You're just a family there with others. Sometimes the mom isn't there, or the dad isn't there of a 2-parent family. So they don't really know. People just don't know. And I think it gives another stable community for all children.
With the busyness of today's parents and regular participation of families hard, how do you accommodate people who just don't fit into whenever you schedule a family program? If this is no good time to schedule, every time is bad for somebody. How do you accommodate them in terms of a whole family faith formation?
Well, we are fortunate in that we have 2 different times, so maybe that's helped us. We do have, and I think if it's at all possible, if you have enough people, that is a good idea. Ours is Sunday morning and Monday evening, so some can do weekends, some can't do weekends, so that helps. And then we also try to be flexible, that if you are in a basketball league that all suddenly now meets Sunday morning, you can switch to Monday evening. So we try to be flexible with families. I have a dear friend who said to me, I really work really, really hard to come to 8 out of your 12 sessions a year. And I was like, just like, oh my gosh, all 12 sessions were great. You missed 4 of them. And over time, I came to realize those were 8 sessions that he was with his kids, and they were with a community that he wouldn't have been at all if we didn't try it. And I always just try to think, are we moving in the right direction? Are we helping families grow in faith, talk about faith, experience faith? It's not perfect. No, what we're doing is not perfect at all. But I'd like to think we're moving in the right direction and helping families to move in the right direction, as imperfect as it is.
Yeah, and I would, I think the 2 times of a month, if you're doing a monthly program, is great. I know that when I was at the parish, I ran into, you might have a divorce situation, and so you have there with different parents on different weekends and that type of thing. This way, they could always join one of those sessions. We also had, coming out of COVID, it depended on the parish, but some parishes had a specific group of parents that said, well, we liked the online thing and we still want to do it just online. And so then that's up to them. There weren't that many of them. Most people wanted to get back together, but it depended on the parish, because we don't tell people what to do when they're making those decisions, but they showed that they actually had a lot of flexibility with that. So I think that the key is trying to think outside the box a little bit. And understand that families are overwhelmed, and that they need us to be a little bit more creative with how we reach out. I also have parishes that I work with, that are doing the family faith formation or the families forming disciples. I think about this great parish in the Metro Atlanta, Corpus Christi, and they were meeting every week. So instead of doing that family session at home, they had everybody come and they did the family session together. So every parish is different in what's going to work for them, whether they're, where they're at, what their resources are, those types of things, their space, their staff. It's different everywhere. There's no wrong way.
I have a last question because I'm watching the chat, and the questions in the chat could take a webinar just to answer the questions. We do a whole session just on the questions. So I will save the chat so everybody knows. I'll save the chat. We'll put the chat on ncclcatholic.org so you know it's there. And some of those questions might form another webinar just to answer those questions. They're just terrific. A lot of people have asked about sacramental preparation and how it fits with a family model. Can you give us some ideas on how to strategize around that?
Well, I can share what we do. We do our sacramental prep. It's augmented to the family model. It doesn't happen necessarily within the family model. And one of the reasons for that is that we want our Catholic school children to be one group. We're one parish. And so we don't want the sacramental prep to be within the family model. We do ask children that are in sacramental prep to be in the family model, of course, or to be in a Catholic school. But then we have family sessions with us, school families, and Taylor, I know, is on for First Reconciliation and First Communion, but for confirmation, we also have them meet once a month, Wednesday nights, with our Catholic school students and our family students. So we're trying, I think both things are important. We don't want 2 communities, one of Catholic school children and one of faith formation families. So that's why we do both. And we think that both of those things are important.
Yeah, and we have some parishes that are doing the exact same thing. They have a family, they're doing First Communion, First Reconciliation as a separate program, separate from their family faith formation. So they're basically, they're doubling up, they'll attend both. But we do have some parishes that are doing family faith formation. We don't provide sacramental prep within our program that we offer. But we do have some parishes that have found ways to incorporate that. When I was at the parish myself, I had confirmation because I had grades 6 to 10. So I incorporated into our family program, and what we told parents was if you had a child that was receiving a sacrament, you went to that sacramental class. Another way that we did it, even if they were doing the, like I said, we still ran the other program, the regular classroom format. If we had several sessions on the books, and I know a lot of parishes do that, where parents are invited to come, and we did child relationship building, communication, affirmation activities, different things like that to build up their relationships within the home and get them sharing about their own, memories of when this child was baptized, when they themselves made their confirmation, what they hope for their children. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can do this.
Right.
I don't find that sacramental prep is the hardest thing to get people to,
No,
because
they'll come.
they're Catholics, right? They'll come for that. So
Yeah.
Thank you to both of you, to Kathie and to Patrice, to launching our day. For all those who are going to stay with us all day, we are back at 2 p.m. Eastern time to focus on family faith formation at home. Catherine Lavecchia from the Church of the Presentation is going to join us. Please join us for that at 2, same URL, same place to visit us. And we'll open up about 1:45 and Eastern time. And everything will be recorded. So I'm going to save the chat. We'll put that into the NCCLcatholic.org where the videos will be. You'll get an email on Friday with how to access all that stuff. So thank you so much for participating and thank you again to Kathie and Patrice for launching us. See you at 2:00 Eastern time.
Thank you.
thanks, John. Thanks, Patrice.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great